On the morning of July 8, 2026, Argentina were trailing Egypt 2-0. By the final whistle, they were through to the quarterfinals. Within hours, a formal complaint landed on FIFA's desk, a video of the tournament's president celebrating went viral, and a country that had just lost its captain's dream of a home tournament was accusing football's governing body of something far more serious than a bad night. The big question is simple. Is Argentina really being protected at this World Cup, or is this the oldest story in football? A giant team, a small nation, and a fan base that cannot accept the result. To understand this, you need the background. Argentina arrived at the 2026 tournament as defending champions, carrying Lionel Messi into what many believe is his final World Cup. That storyline alone puts pressure on every decision that goes their way. Commercially, reports have valued deals tied to Messi's continued presence in the tournament at close to $800 million, a figure that has led some observers to ask an uncomfortable question. Does football's biggest stage have a financial incentive in keeping Argentina alive? The first event came in the round of 16. Egypt led 2-0 against Argentina before a VAR intervention ruled out what would have been a decisive Egyptian goal. Argentina came back to win. Egypt's Football Association responded by filing an official complaint with FIFA, describing the officiating as a case of double standards and calling for the removal of the match referee and his entire team. Why does this matter? Because a formal complaint from a national federation is not the same as fan outrage on social media. It is an institutional statement, and it forces football's governing body to respond publicly, whether or not wrongdoing is ever proven. But this is where the story changes. Critics quickly widened their argument beyond a single match. They pointed to an earlier group stage incident where Messi avoided a red card for a challenge on Algeria's Aissa Mandi, drawing comparisons to American striker Folarin Balogun, who was initially sent off for a similar incident before the decision was overturned. That contrast has raised questions among supporters about whether the same standard is being applied to every team at the tournament. That alone would be significant. Yet the situation goes further. A video began circulating of FIFA President Gianni Infantino congratulating Argentina's players after their match against Cape Verde. Speaking to Argentine media afterward, Infantino said he had suffered with them during the game, while insisting he remained neutral throughout. For some supporters, that single clip became proof of favoritism. For others, it was simply a president being human in front of cameras that never stop rolling. Here is why this matters on a wider scale. Perceptions of bias, even unproven ones, chip away at trust in a competition that depends entirely on the belief that every team is playing under the same rules. Tournament organizers know this. It is why refereeing appointments at this level draw so much scrutiny in the first place. That brings us to a second event. For the quarterfinal against Switzerland, officials appointed a referee whose recent history includes a contested handball decision in a Champions League semifinal between Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain. A call that, according to reports, may have changed the outcome of that match had it gone differently. The appointment reignited debate before a ball was even kicked, with some fans wondering aloud why a referee already at the center of controversy was placed in another high-stakes Argentina fixture. The wider implications extend beyond one team. Egypt is not the only nation to have questioned officiating standards at this tournament. Long-standing sensitivities also surfaced when it emerged that Argentina cannot be officiated by an English referee, a rule rooted in the political history between Argentina and the United Kingdom following the 1982 Falklands conflict. It is a reminder that football, however global, still carries the weight of history into its biggest moments. Then came a third and far more serious development. According to a report from La Nación, the FBI has opened an investigation into the Argentine Football Association over the movement of more than $300 million into banks and companies in the United States, examining possible fraud and money laundering. This story sits entirely outside the officiating debate, yet its timing, arriving mid-tournament, has added another layer to the broader narrative of an Argentina under institutional scrutiny on multiple fronts at once. From an institutional standpoint, football's governing body has pushed back. FIFA's refereeing chief rejected claims of bias following comments from Egypt's coach, who suggested there may have been influence behind the officiating in the round of 16 match. Competition officials maintain that referee appointments are made independently and that no rules were broken in the incidents under scrutiny. including a separate allegation involving a video review official that FIFA said was the result of an unrelated physical reaction rather than any gesture of intent. Of course, there is a counterargument, and a fair analysis has to include it. Controversial refereeing decisions happen in almost every major tournament, involving almost every major team. Comparing individual incidents across different matches, different referees, and different contexts is difficult, and it is entirely possible that a team simply built for knockout football is receiving the benefit of tight calls that any contender might get. Critics argue that conspiracy narratives spread faster than the nuance required to properly evaluate a single VAR decision. The bigger picture here is not really about one team at all. It is about whether football's biggest stage can survive the scale of its own scrutiny. Every marginal call is now filmed, replayed, and dissected by millions within minutes. Institutions built decades ago are being asked to operate under a level of transparency they were never designed for, and Argentina, simply by being the champions everyone is watching, has become the test case. In the end, none of this proves that Argentina's run to the later stages has been manufactured. What it does prove is that the margin between believable competition and public suspicion has never been thinner, and that football's governing body now carries the burden of proving its neutrality match by match, not tournament by tournament. So here is the question worth sitting with. When a result and a financial interest happen to align, is it fair to expect a governing body to prove its innocence, or does that expectation itself say more about football's trust problem than about Argentina at all?